Live from the Orange Grove 55 studios, it's the Duck Pond. Today's topic is Netflix buying Warner Brothers. Or not? Starring Mr. Seymour Duck, OG55, and Slime Square. This is your destination for the deep dive discussions, lively debates, and the freshest takes on what's floating in the news. Here's your host, Mr. Seymour Duck on the Duck Pond.
There he is.
Welcome to the Duck Pond. I'm your host, Mr. Seymour Duck, and let me tell you, the water's looking great today because I brought in two fine-looking ducks to join me in to talk about Netflix, Paramount, trying to buy Warner Brothers. Our first guest here is trying to make this conversation absolutely quacktastic. He really fits the bill when isn't waddling to the beat of the latest K-pop hits, or wishing upon the star in his own very own Magic Kingdom. Put your wings together for the one and only OG55.
Seymour Duck. It is always an honor and a privilege to be a guest here on the Duck Pond. Looking forward to talking Warner Brothers. This is the drama of all dramas in Hollywood. I think Disney right now is actually kind of like relieved, like, wow, we can sit back and we're not the center of the drama this time, you know? So it's pretty crazy. But I want to thank you, Seymour, for having me on. I do appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube, on Orange Grove 55, talking theme park studio, all that good stuff right here with these fine gentlemen all the time. And you can also find me on Instagram, Orange Grove 55.
Thank you. And joining him, things are about to get exciting. We got a guest who's ready to fly through time, literally. Whether he's hitting 88 miles per hour or strapping on a proton pack, he's ready for action. Give a huge Duck Pond welcome to Slime Square.
Yes. What's up?
Thank you, Mr. Seymour Duck. Thank you for having me on, brother. We're being greeted by the billionaires, or treated rather, by the drama of the century for Christmas. So I'm here for it. This is fantastic. The DMs are absolutely wild. The news is just evolving so fast that by the time this hits YouTube, you're gonna have to watch the next video because this one's already gonna be obsolete. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's moving real fast. That's why I think right after this is done, I'm gonna quickly upload it because you never know. I don't know if the LSPs are gonna make like another move or something like that. We gotta get it out there. I'm not too worried about Comcast though. They don't seem to be doing anything right now. So
yeah, I'm sorry, you're not gonna get your Scooby-Doo e-ticket.
No, unfortunately.
So,
but
yeah.
Go
Where
ahead.
can they find you at Slime Square on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on all social medias at Slime Square or Slime Square 84, except for TikTok. You won't find me on there.
Yeah.
So,
I have a TikTok, but I never use it. I just wanted to lock in my name, for like the channel, but I don't really use it. I should though. I mean, like a lot of our friends are on there, but nah.
So I just wanted to say it. Thank you for coming on and nerding out with me. Because I actually wanted to talk about the whole drama, regarding Netflix buying Warner Brothers and then Paramount coming in, sneaking in today, actually giving this, this bid coming in now, a bigger bid than before. And I actually wanted to, we talk about, a lot about the corporate talk, but I actually want to go deeper in with the numbers with you guys. And that's what we do here at the Duck Pond. We go a little bit more deeper in with the numbers, deep dives. And today, I wanted to talk about that today. And today, Paramount launched an all-cash tender offer to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is courtesy of StrongerHollywood.com. It says here, Paramount launches all-cash tender offer to acquire WB. Paramount, a Skydance corporation, has commenced an all-cash tender offer to acquire all the outstanding shares of WB Discovery for $30 per share in cash. Paramount's proposed transaction is for the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery, including the global networks segment. Paramount strategically and financially compelling offer to WBD shareholders provides a superior alternative to the Netflix transaction, which offers inferior and uncertain value and exposes WBD shareholders to a protracted multi-jurisdictional regulatory clearance process. Look at that, dude. That was smooth. Ooh. with an uncertain outcome along with a complex and volatile mix of equity and cash. This is crazy, you guys, because they're saying this is a hostile bid, which is I mean, I guess, right? I mean, that's a fair, hostile, unsolicited, whatever you want to call it. But Seymour, take it away, man. What's going on with this thing? This is kind of wild.
You say hostile, but for me, I actually think that it's about on par to what Netflix was bidding. They were bidding for $27.75, if I'm not mistaken, per share, and the $2.25 is left over for the spinoff that's happening. And even a lot of the news outlets were saying that Warner Brothers wanted a $30 per share. You're essentially getting that with Netflix. The difference here is that Paramount's going all in with cash. And they're saying that because Netflix is offering a 15% stocks as well in part of the cash, that it's not a good value, even though I actually think it is good value, because if Warner Brothers merges with Netflix, that actually increases the value of those shares that you just acquired, because now you have a better entity overall.
So it's interesting. So Seymour, I have a question for you. Then we'll go to Slimer. Like, in terms of this bid, what happens if they decide that if Warner Brothers decides, hey, you know what, Netflix is just a bet for us. Netflix is just a better fit. I mean, do you think that Warner Brothers is going to get some heat? I mean, they're already going to get heat with the DOJ and all that. We already know that, because this is the Netflix side of this is very, very it's going to be. It's iffy, right? In terms of regulatory stuff. But I mean, if they don't take this offer, and it doesn't seem like it's worse than the Netflix one, are they in more legal trouble, or do they have like a right to turn it down, even though technically maybe it's better than the other one that Netflix is offering? Like, how does that work in terms of like the legalities of this whole thing?
Well, there's a breakup fee if Warner Brothers actually goes back on their word for the deal with Netflix. And there's a breakup fee if Netflix does the same thing, or if it doesn't get approved by the regulators. And I don't see any positive for Warner Brothers to back out when they could just wait for the regulators to come in and say, yeah, we approve the deal. Oh, we don't approve the deal, because they're going to get paid either way, and then they can go with another bid.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. What's your take on that, Slimer?
No, I agree with Seymour. Warner Brothers is really in a tough spot because, if they back out, let's say they take Paramount's offer, then they're going to have to pay Netflix $2.8 or $2.9 billion. So that's I don't think they have the cash on hand, so they would have to wait and see if the regulators approve the Paramount acquisition, and then they would have to do a cash payout based off of the cash that Paramount's going to give them. That's provided that they don't have any issues, and they get the $30 per share that their Paramount is offering. Netflix is kind of really in the best of all places when it comes to this, because all Netflix has to do is get the approval. If Warner Brothers backs out, they get paid. If Netflix really has, it's kind of crazy because Netflix is really in the best seat. They really are. And just to put it in perspective, I mean, if Netflix gets a breakers fee from Warner Brothers of $2.9 billion, that increases their cash flow by a squeaky 30%. 30% increase in cash flow, which would be a nice chunk of change for Netflix that they can improve. They can use that for, they could just pad their cash flow. They could invest it into Netflix House. There's many ways that they can utilize that. Just to give you an example, when Comcast finalized their deal with Hulu, they took the remainder of that payout from Disney for the remaining shares and used it to build Epic Universe. I mean, that's how impactful a $3 billion payout could be. But yeah, Warner Brothers is really in a tight pickle here. Seymour, I thought about this a little bit, and we'll get into the numbers, but just generally broadly speaking, I don't think it's worth it for Warner Brothers to back out.
What do you
I
think?
agree. I agree as well. And if you think about it, when you're looking at the deal with Paramount that is offering on that website, which is made by Paramount, that website, that's why there's a lot of negative towards Netflix. But yes, if you look at that deal, it's just astonishing because they're talking about how, if you merge with Paramount, with Warner Brothers, you get better value creation. And I'm like, not really, because you overlap with a lot of the stuff within the studios, with the movie theaters, and a lot of the things that happen. And that's not value creation, where you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna have to cut costs because of that, because you put so much money into buying Warner Brothers, and because of that, you're gonna have to cut costs, and you're gonna have to lay off a lot of people, and you're gonna have to potentially use more AI to cut those costs. And if Netflix merged with Warner Brothers, you're not going to have that issue as much, because Netflix has gaps within the company, where they're primarily a streaming service. They're not an entertainment company as much. They need the studios, they need the IPs, right? They don't have movies coming out in movie theaters as much. And you can see them partnering up with Sony, Universal, to do other things. Skydance, they have those animated movies that didn't do well, but they need to partner with other studios to produce their content. They pay a licensing fee to get those IPs to go on their platform, but a lot of their Netflix originals are not really original. And with Warner Brothers, it will fill that gap, and I think it will actually not reduce as much. I know there's going to be job loss no matter which way you go, but I think with Netflix, and I think a lot of people are not talking about it, is that you will get less job loss if you actually merged it with Netflix than if it was to Paramount. And I think that is Netflix's case that they're going to take to the regulators, saying that we're not the same company as the other guys. We're a completely different company, and we actually need Warner Brothers support to go further down in the growth within the company.
That's a great point, Seymour. That's a great point. And you're right. A lot of people aren't talking about that. There's a lot of redundancies with Paramount buying Warner Brothers. They're both the same thing. They're both movie studios. So there's going to be absolutely, I think, more layoffs with a Paramount Warner Brothers merger. if Netflix is going to make their case, that is definitely something they should lean into. Hey, we're adding something different. We're diversifying what we do. We're a streamer. And now we're going to get into theatrical and making content, right? So that expands what we do. There's less overlap with our business, right? Where Paramount, it's literally the same business, and you're going to have all kinds of layoffs. I mean, just look at what happened when Disney bought Fox. I mean, there was a lot of layoffs with that because they were two of the same thing. They were two movie studios. So what say you about that, Slimer? I'm curious of your thoughts on this.
No, yeah, I agree. Warner Brothers and Paramount, they're too aligned. I mean, there's been a lot of conversations about who is better aligned with this acquisition, Netflix, Comcast, or Paramount. But the problem with a major studio like Paramount buying another major studio like Warner Brothers is that you're going to have double the lots, double the personnel that all do and execute the same things at the same levels. It's just not sustainable. And this kind of feeds into this next prompt that we have here on the screen. And Seymour, I'll let you introduce it. But this idea that they're going to make doubly more movies, unless they run the studios completely separately and continue to run them like Fox does or Disney does with Fox and Disney Animation and Walt Disney Studios. I mean, they're going to have to completely run these as complete different joint ventures. But the problem is that they're going to go to the same creditors to get the money to finance these films.
Right.
And with what is that? I mean, the Allisons are paying $100 billion out of pocket, I believe. The SEC filing actually just came out and said that there were some creditors involved, correct?
Is that correct, Seymour? I'm not sure.
Yes, and I actually sent in some screenshots that we will look at the actual numbers in regards to the debt and the amount that Paramount actually has to pay.
Okay, so on that, I mean, with $100 billion out by the Ellisons, which I don't know if they're going to pay cash from their own savings or if they're going to go to a creditor to get that. But if it's a creditor, then it's going to be harder for them to borrow to increase the amount of production that they're promising. And I just don't know if that's something that they're able to do, or if that's going to make them too cash tight to be able to produce at the op tempo that they're now telling the Warner Brothers shareholders that they're going to be able to do if they switch sides to them.
Well, yeah, and Disney didn't. Disney, I mean, even with Disney, with the Fox thing, like Fox as a studio releases less movies now than they did when they weren't owned by Disney. So that's 100%. A great point that you got, right? And that's a great point that you both are making here. Where like, how is Paramount going to release? You know, it's going to have that number. The WB number is going to have to come down. Absolutely. Go ahead, Seymour. What say you, sir?
So yes, just to go back. So this the article that was talking about how the CEO of Paramount said that we're going to release 30 movies a year if they were able to buy Warner Brothers. And I found that ridiculous. And I find that like they're going for like that's a Bob Chapek move to do. to say that we'll do quantity versus quality. And I'm like, no, people don't have time and money to watch all these movies. And with the industry changing and how we watch things, and we want to save our money, you know, people are watching less and less in the movie theaters. They want that, you know, that experience. Let's say for like Avatar 2, right? People, Avatar, the new one, the third one, right? Fire and Ash. People are going to watch that experience in the movies, but you're not going to have 30 movies like that in the movie theater and have the budget to obtain that. And as you can see here, right? I detailed it out for everyone to simplify it. So the detail to get the 108.4 billion, they're going to get 54 billion from the banks, and then they're going to get 40.7 billions from the Ellison family and the sovereign wealth funds. And they did some trickery this morning saying that they didn't mention the sovereign wealth funds, but then when you look at the SEC filings, it mentions the sovereign wealth funds. But then they also mentioned a backstop. Basically, if the regulators have issues with the sovereign wealth funds, that the Ellison family will produce the rest of funds, which is almost like more debt that is being acquired by them. And then the assumed debt that will take over after all of this would be 13.7 billion from the Warner Brothers bondholders, equaling to the 108.4 billion. If you think about it, if you take the funds that are being acquired by the Ellison family, that could be considered debt as well for them. That's 108.4 billion in debt just to acquire Warner Brothers. That's kind of crazy. And when you do that and you think about that, how are they going to produce so much like movies when the company themselves don't produce that much cash? If you go there, I have a second screenshot.
Yeah, I got you, man. I got you.
Yeah. If you look at the second screenshot,
next PowerPoint, please.
Here we go. We got part 2. Seymour, here you go.
If you look at this,
I'm sorry. This is part 1. I do apologize.
No, that was part 2.
Oh, that was part 2. Oh, okay. My bad. Here we go. I didn't fumble. There we go.
Yeah, no, this is part 2. Yeah, this is Paramount part 2. So now I did all the math for you, so you don't have to do it. The total debt that they're going to have at the end of the day, right? If we don't count the Ellison family acquiring their own debt, is 83.5 billion. That is 6.5 times more larger than the profits they'll be making from Warner Brothers and Paramount together. That's insane. And then with the interest payments, you're going to have $5 to $6 billion a year just to pay off those debt alone. Where are you going to get these 30 movies a year if you have to just this debt alone you have to pay off?
Yeah, it's crazy, Seymour. And I feel like the number that, we're going to do 30 movies, right? I feel like that is such a tone deaf thing in this current landscape. Like, I don't think anyone wants theatrical to go away. But I also, at the same time, even supporters of that theatrical experience understand it is a diminishing piece of the overall pie, right? I think we all have that. That's the reality of the situation. I mean, I could be a fan of linear TV, but I also understand, hey, it's a melting ice cube. It's shrinking. Same with theatrical. So to sit there and be like, yeah, we're gonna double and triple down on the amount of movies, that's not where people are at right now, though. People are not going to the movies in droves. They're going to see certain stuff. Yes. Like you were saying, Seymour, like the Avatars, you know, the Zootopia 2s and stuff like that. It's more like an event thing. A lot of people are really kind of opting for that streaming option more times than not. And for Paramount to think that they're going to increase the theatrical output, I think they're trying to placate to Hollywood and the theatrical industry and what have you. But I think it's kind of backfiring a little bit, in my opinion, because I feel like it's so much pandering to that industry that it's almost like it's like kind of it's what's the word for it? They're shooting themselves in the foot because it's not realistic. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think it's kind of crazy. And you're right, Seymour. It's very much a Bob Chapek-y, like, hey, we're going to turn this stuff out, you know, and you know, it's not going to work out.
And yeah, I just wanted to say one thing more is that when I did the math for Disney and when they bought Fox, the leverage ratio was only at 2 times larger than their yearly profit compared to now here at 6.5 times.
Yeah,
Wow.
they just don't have the revenue to be able to pay off the interest on it to service the debt in a responsible and fiscally responsible way, in my opinion. But you know, you brought up a good point, OG, which is that I believe the Ellisons just, in my opinion, just made this statement about churning out more movies than Warner Brothers and Paramount combined, hoping
Right.
for a knee-jerk reaction from the Warner Brothers shareholders. But then two, you know, the exhibitors like to hear that. The movie theaters, they love to hear there's going to be more movies. But that's one of those statements he just made without consulting anybody else. And how do you know that? Because there's no way that Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi are just like, yeah, we're going to turn out 30 movies a year. What? Well, and then don't forget, Paramount and Warner Brothers can also consider themselves award-winning studios. They have a very heavy focus on Golden Globe nominations and Oscars. And there's just no way you're going to stay at that level of quality if you're pumping out 30 movies a year. And then what are these movies? Are they just more horror movies that they're pumping out? Are they more A24 films that they're going to, you know, that Skydance is going to finance or distribute? So yeah, there's no clarity in that statement. It's a nothing burger promise to the shareholders, hoping for a knee-jerk reaction and then trying to build some goodwill with you know, with the general public.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're writing checks that they can't cash, basically, figuratively,
Yeah.
right? It's you know, it's like we're gonna do this many films, and they're trying to placate because they know the fear out there with Netflix is even the expediting of the theatrical experience dying, you know, melting, right, going away. So they're trying to play into that fear, like, well, if you go with us, though, we're going to double and triple down on these theatrical, you know, our theatrical output. And they don't really understand. And that's not really where the market's at right now. And it's surprisingly tone deaf in my opinion. I don't know. And this is an interesting thing because, you know, we see it from the outside looking in, right? We see, like, obviously Warner Brothers is not super interested in Paramount. Obviously they've turned them down like multiple times. We're kind of starting to see maybe why, because you got to understand, like I think a lot of these discussions are being had behind the scenes. The WB executives are probably not that impressed with what they're hearing from the Ellisons or whatever. It just seems like I kind of don't blame them for not wanting the Paramount thing, in my opinion, you know. But I don't know. We'll see.
I actually agree, because if you think about it, either if you're a shareholder for Netflix or Warner Brothers, when you look at the companies, right? And if you wanted to go with Netflix or Paramount, who has a better shot of having a better future? Who's the one that can sustain all their jobs and ensure that growth is going to be there? Netflix. When you go with Paramount, you have uncertainty. You don't know if Paramount can do it. It's the amount of debt they have to go to get these, and then making these crazy promises saying that we're going to do all of this. How? By acquiring more debt? Because how are you going to do this? You don't have the funds for it. Well, with Netflix has a stable cash flow machine where if you go with Netflix, they're able to produce the movies that Warner Brothers can do if they're going that route. they're willing to, keep the jobs to ensure that they can produce those quality TV shows that Warner Brothers and HBO does. But with Paramount, I don't see that. And besides, as we mentioned at the top of the show, that Netflix has these gaps within studios where they have to rely on other companies like Sony to produce their TV shows and movies. Where if you brought in Warner Brothers, right, you again that future of knowing that, oh, okay, we actually need Warner Brothers. We're going to keep Warner Brothers, and a lot of the execs, under the CEO, want to keep their job when they get merged, and under Paramount, it doesn't feel like that because there's a lot of overlap, and they're going to get laid off.
Well, I want to ask you guys, and we talked about this in the group text and everything, and an interesting discussion here with monopoly issues, right? So we've talked a lot about Paramount. Now Netflix has their own set of issues, with the Trump administration, and also the monopoly issue of the streaming services. And I was saying in the group text this past weekend, like, honestly, unless they spin off HBO Max or I can't see the regulators. Regulators. I had to. Sorry. Regulators. No, but I can't see the regulators approving that, right? Like, I mean, they would make up 30% of the market share in the streaming market. That's huge. I mean, that's too much. So, Seymour, I'll ask you, like, what do you think is going to happen? Because obviously, Netflix wants that as part of the package. Are they just going to have to make a deal with some of this streaming stuff, you think, to get it through, or how are they going to kind of navigate this?
Well, the way that I'm looking at this is Netflix is going to basically make the case that YouTube is going to be their major competitor and not some of the smaller streamers. YouTube has who knows how many millions or billions of subscribers. However, I mean, these are not paid for subscribers. They're subscribers to channels, but the amount of viewership, the amount of watch hours that YouTube incurs on a month-to-month basis, I would say probably overshadows Netflix. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can only assume. I mean, YouTube's got to be way up there.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Paramount owns TikTok. Am I not mistaken?
That one I don't know.
Yes, with the CEO of the family does. Yeah,
right.
Larry
Right.
Ellis,
So
yes.
So you could argue that if Warner Brothers Paramount gets Warner Brothers rather, then Paramount's going to control CBS, CNN, and TikTok and Discovery, and they're going to have a larger global ownership of news and media information than Netflix, because Netflix really doesn't own any news agencies right now. I mean, they have what do they own? They own help me out here. They have one global station. They have a small video game production company.
Yeah.
But nothing that you can really call media or news. Paramount acquiring Warner Brothers would actually have a larger monopoly in that instance. And then if you factor in TikTok, I mean you have, in my opinion, a much bigger risk at creating a monopoly and violating antitrust laws than if Netflix acquires Warner Brothers. And so that's why, for me, I've never understood this argument that Netflix is going to be a larger violation of antitrust just by having 30% of the streaming market. I mean, there's a lot of industries where one company owns 30% of the market share. So why are we acting like this is all of a sudden new territory in the business sector? I don't understand that argument. I also don't understand the argument that Netflix owning Warner Brothers is going to kill Hollywood. I see a lot of thumbnails. Hollywood is dead. Netflix is. I'm sorry, but last time I checked, if Netflix buys Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers still remains a studio putting out movies in the theater, then they have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the profitability of Warner Brothers. Am I not mistaken? So, like, they're legally responsible. Like, they can be sued by the shareholders if they decide to crash and burn Warner Brothers under their ownership, because,
yes,
so this, I don't feel like people are just thinking things through when they're saying things, because none of that makes any sense. They would make sure that Warner Brothers stays as profitable as possible until everybody eventually leaves the theatrical gravy train, whenever that is. Nobody knows. So, anyways, I mean,
that's a great point, Slimer. And another thing too is Netflix does have a vested interest in keeping Hollywood in general healthy, right?
right.
Because Netflix as a streaming service is more or less an aggregator of content. They pull from the studios, maybe a little bit less than they used to, because now Disney has Disney Plus and Comcast has Peacock, but they still, by and large, pull from all these Hollywood studios, and it's aggregated onto Netflix. I don't think it's in Netflix's best interest to go in there and completely decimate Hollywood, because who's going to make the bulk of their content at that point? I mean, yeah, they'll own Warner Brothers, but I mean, you still want to have, I mean, their biggest thing right now, K-pop Demon Hunters, is from Sony. It's a Sony anime. So I think it's in their interest to keep Hollywood healthy. They don't want to, yeah, I've seen a lot of the thumbnails too, Simon, where it's like Hollywood is dead. No. Maybe the theatrical experience is dead or dying. I don't even think dead is even fair for theatrical, but Hollywood in general will survive. And also, we've talked about a lot here on the channel, but Netflix culturally is the most culturally relevant entity out there, I think, more than most of these other studios. I mean, Netflix stuff moves the cultural needle big time, whether it's K-pop Demon Hunters, Stranger Things. They really do shake things up. I don't think I've seen anything come out of Disney in a long time that's moved the needle like K-pop Demon Hunters. I mean, Zootopia 2 is doing really well, but I don't know. Demon Hunters is a whole nother level. So I mean, I don't think they're gonna kill Hollywood. I think that in a lot of ways they've been actually kind of helping Hollywood, dare I say, with how they've been kind of fostering, facilitating this content. I think it's been beneficial. But theatrical, that is gonna take a hit. But that's honestly, we talked about it on the channel too. That is already dying though. Like that's already going away. Like Netflix isn't going into a completely healthy theatrical environment atmosphere. Like this is already a melting ice cube, just like linear. So, I mean, it's not like it's been super. I mean, the theatrical has been on its back legs, I would say, since the pandemic, right? Go ahead, Seymour. I'll let you finish.
Oh no, I was just gonna say this is the perfect segue to the tweet that I wanted to talk about as well. Talking about how the movie theater industry won't go away just simply because of Warner Brothers leaving, if that was the possible future.
Right. Here we go. All right, here it is, Seymour.
Going into Biff Tannen's timeline.
There it is. There it is. It says here, this is from Jason, at Jason. It says here, let Netflix buy it and build a 1 billion subscriber service, and they can abandon theaters completely. Then Disney, A24, and 3 new studios can take over theaters. Competition and consolidation are fine, people. This is all creative destruction and part of the paradigm shift. Go ahead, Seymour. I'll let you take it from here, brother.
So basically what I wanted to show within this tweet is that if Warner Brothers just leaves the movie theater industry, the other companies, the other studios will just fill in the gaps. And it's simple as that. And more smaller studios can actually come in and compete as well if needed to. So for example, let's say there was going to be a movie with Super Mario Brothers and Minecraft coming out. But then now Warner Brothers is not doing Minecraft for the movie theaters anymore. Okay, so then you just shift to the Mario movie. And now you get the people who were thinking about, I don't want to see Mario, I want to see Minecraft. You gain revenue. The studios are not going to lose out people who go to the movies. There might be a small dip because it's a melting ice cube. But overall, the industry, if you wanted to see a movie at the movie theater, you're going to see a movie at the movie theater. They just have to produce the movies that people want to see, those movie theater experiences, and they will go see it. I don't think it's going to ruin the movie theaters at all. It just gives them more, Disney, Universal, Paramount, they just have to create more movies that people are willing to see, and everything will fill in the gaps for them.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there is definitely an institutional stubbornness in Hollywood where they don't like change. And this is a very scary thing for Hollywood, right? in an industry that's seen a lot of change lately, right? I mean, even the AI stuff, all this stuff, right? So I think there's like this like fear of like, oh, this is too much, and it's like, I get it, I understand, but I think you're right, Seymour. I think that we're just going to see the theatrical experience or the theatrical impact just kind of evolve. I don't think it's necessarily going to go away. I mean, look, we still have radio. I mean, you can still listen to the radio, right? I mean, if radio is here, I think theatrical will be fine. Now, look, theatrical will be a smaller part of everyone's lives. And whether Netflix takes Warner Brothers or not, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. More and more people are opting to watch this stuff at home, just like more and more people are opting to use DoorDash and Amazon. And it's just the way it is. And I think Hollywood is like just really freaked out right now. And I get it, but you can only hold back the dam waters, so long before the dam breaks. Eventually, this theatrical thing is going to be much more of a niche, I think, a much more of a niche sort of experience, I mean, and whether Netflix buys it or not. But what say you, Simon? What are your thoughts on this, brother?
Well, yeah, and this is assuming that they pull Warner Brothers production from theatrical, which there's no reason to believe that they won't, because I think that by maintaining Warner Brothers movies in the movie theaters, they're diversifying their risk, because you never know. I mean, streaming might go down for them. I mean, you just never know how the consumer is going to react. I mean, inflation is still an issue. People are becoming more conservative as to where they spend their money for entertainment. We do know that people are spending just as much on entertainment now than they ever have. So it's not like people are pulling away from it, entertainment avenues, but the avenues themselves shift constantly. And so it's all, it's a revolving door. So that's why I said that Netflix is going to maintain their theatrical output with Warner Brothers. They don't have an incentive to pull them, but in the event that they do, I mean, it's going to create a more positive, competitive atmosphere for the exhibitors, because there's going to be a power vacuum, and so people are going to fill that spot, whether it's the existing theaters that Warner Brothers currently competes with, so Sony, Paramount, Disney, or a smaller theater comes in. Maybe that'll give incentive for, for like, let's say Paramount doesn't get this deal, that'll give more incentive for Paramount to produce more horror films or more A-list theatrical releases like Dune. So yeah, I think this is just par for the course. This is the movie theater industry adapting a little bit faster than I think it would have. So for me, this is just like an expediting of what we're already seeing. It just, I think, speeds up the process.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, the movie theaters are they're going to change no matter what. Right. So everybody dragging their feet to something that's inevitable. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, this is going to happen no matter what. And I think people are really overreacting to Netflix doing something which they never said they did, or they're going to do so.
No, it's a great point. No, that's a great point. We don't know that they're going to pull all Warner Brothers movies and never release them in theaters again. And like you were saying, Slimer, there's no reason to do that. Like, right. It's in Netflix, I think, while they're not maybe super bullish on the theatrical experience, I think they still understand, and I could be wrong, but I think they still understand there is some value to that theatrical experience. I mean, obviously they feel that way because didn't they just release K-pop Demon Hunters in the theater? Like,
right. And they're going to release Volume 2, Stranger Things Season 5 in the theater. So there's incentive for theatrical. And again, they're running the most successful streaming business on the planet. And, you would have to really think very low of their ability to run a company if you don't think that Netflix is not invested in diversifying risk, when they recently acquired a small video game company and now they want to acquire a theater. And I mean, like, they know what they're doing. So,
well, yeah, that's a great point. We see a pattern here with Netflix recently, right? With that thing in Texas, what's it called? Netflix House, I believe. That and like you were saying, the video games. Now Warner Brothers, they are clearly making a move to go beyond streaming. They clearly want more than just the streaming. So you know, I think that they probably see Warner Brothers as like their theatrical wing right now, or if they grid it, you know, it'll be the theatrical arm of this bigger company. And look, in 10, 15 years from now, I mean, maybe there won't be theatrical, or maybe the theatrical will be very, very small, but that's not all on Netflix though, to be fair to them, right? I mean, it really isn't. I mean, this has been going on for a real long time with theatrical. And so what say you, Seymour? Curious your thoughts, brother.
You do bring up good points, and it actually reminds me of why I didn't invest in Netflix, but now I'm like considering, because one of the issues with Netflix was that I was thinking 10 to 20 years in the future is that their growth will eventually hit a ceiling and their revenues won't expand. Eventually, Netflix will have to get creative and find ways to expand those revenues. Warner Brothers, that was my biggest issue, right? And the reliance on other studios and the lack of IPs is an issue for Netflix. Buying Warner Brothers Discovery fixes all those issues.
Mm-hmm.
It expands it. If they want to go to the theme park, they can, or they could just license to, other, like Universal, and get those licensing fees. That's easy money for them. Or they can make video games. Warner Brothers actually has a video game department that they could own, Warner Brother Games, and they own Mortal Kombat. So when you think about things like that, expanding another industry in gaming, where Netflix did that now, but it's like small mobile games that you get free with your subscription. Now they can expand to like AAA games that are like Batman level, Arkham Asylum level games that Warner Brother produces that can help with Netflix. A lot of these things that like I mentioned before, filling the gaps in, those can expand the revenues for Warner Brothers.
Yeah. No, you're right. No, you're right. Absolutely. I think we're going to see an evolution. If Netflix is a very ballsy company, and I think we're going to see a lot of new things being tried, and we're seeing it now with them, right? Even with like Stranger Things, the finale or whatever is going to be in the theaters, right? As you were saying, Slimer, and K-pop Demon Hunter, they put that in theater for a little while. I think Netflix is going to experiment a lot with this cross pollination of the theatrical experience mixed in with the at-home streaming stuff. I think we'll see more of that. They're going to break the sort of the box that Hollywood's in with all that stuff, right? But yeah, overall though, it's interesting. They are definitely making moves to diversify. And I'm very curious to see how it all shakes out. Now, Slimer, I want to ask you, in terms of the regulatory process, Trump is his administration doesn't seem too keen on this. I mean, do you think that, like, do you feel personally that that's going to be an issue that Netflix can ultimately overcome with like maybe some sort of negotiation? Like, because for me, that's probably the biggest hurdle right now, I think, for them, right?
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they both haven't had an opportunity to make their case, and Paramount has its own issues as well. I've seen a couple of the issues before.
Yeah.
But like, let's not forget though that Donald Trump did sue CBS, which owns 60 Minutes, which is owned by Paramount. And Mr. Seymour Duck actually shared a tweet that President Trump released today where he lambasts Paramount. So, yeah, I mean, he has his issues with Netflix. He has his issues with CBS, too.
Yeah,
he sued them. So he has his issues with both studios. I mean, it could turn out that, Warner Brothers doesn't sell before Christmas. I mean, that's a real possibility as well. That nothing gets finalized and they either get auctioned off or they continue to just roll along like they have been. So I mean, nothing is really in stone until the regulators make a decision. But as far as who's going to have the better argument, unfortunately, I don't think it's really going to come down to something as objective as argumentation. There's going to be politics. There's going to be handshaking. There's going to be behind the door deals. I mean, you have Kirshner. He owns one of the investors in the consortium of investors for Paramount. I mean, he's Donald Trump's son-in-law. So, there's deals being made. I can guarantee you that. I mean, Ted Sarandos is friends with the Obamas. So maybe there's people within the regulation, the FTC and the FCC, that are friends with the Obamas. Like, you just don't know all the players. We're looking at we're looking at the galaxy through like a 1x1 zoom, like the entire galaxy. Like we're all looking at it through like a sector of the sky, and we're trying to draw all these inferences, and we don't have any of the information. We're making very general inferences based off of little information. We kind of know some of the key players, but how the decisions are going to be made, I don't know, man. I mean, Warner Brothers owns CNN. Maybe Netflix will be like, hey, man, we'll give you control of, we'll give Donald Trump Jr. control of CNN, and then he can turn CNN into a right wing news station. Like, you don't know. Like, I mean, this is a hypothetical scenario, but would you say that Donald Trump wouldn't entertain that?
No, yeah, absolutely, he would. He would
That
absolutely.
also,
Yeah.
That also brings me up to the point where a lot of the investors coming in for Paramount are foreign entities, and if they get control of that, Warner Brothers and Paramount merge, we don't know what happened, just pure speculation, but there could be some censorship within some of the news stations with like CNN, where they censor a lot of the negative commentary with other countries where they have investors in, because they own the companies. They say they won't do it, but we don't know what's happening behind the scene. We don't know what we don't know.
Well, that's why on the press release, the Paramount release today, they neglected to mention that there was a consortium of financiers, and this is something that me and Seymour were talking about. He's like, no, he's like, wait, the SEC filing actually shows that there's outside financiers. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it wasn't on the press release, but there it is. So yeah, there's a lot of shady shit going on, man. It's all shady. It's shady all the way down.
No, 100%. Now, Seymour, you sent me a video that you wanted us to watch and react to. Is it okay to bring that up?
Yeah. So basically, I was talking to a lot of like investors who invest in companies like Netflix, Warner Brothers, and Paramount, and they were saying that, this is bullish. They think this is the best thing that's happening. Netflix owning Warner Brothers Discovery. They think that it is actually a better solution than Paramount, fundamentally, with all the numbers and stability for the future of people's future jobs. And I wanted to react to this guy because he just released this video talking about it, and I wanted to get a retrospective, of an investors talking about it, because we talk about it as like fans a lot of the times. Like, I want Comcast to own Warner Brothers so we can have their IPs in the parks, but can they even fund those IPs in the parks after buying it? And I would like to react to this video that talks about some of the numbers, and also a lot of numbers if they did buy Warner Brothers Netflix.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in response, Seymour, to you talking about people that want Comcast to own Warner Brothers because of the parks. Sorry, I had to.
And to be fair, if we lived in a perfect world, I would like all these companies to stand on their own and compete with each other. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and consolidation will have to happen in order for them to survive.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Yeah, you're right, Seymour. Like, Warner Brothers is going to get sold off, whether it goes to Netflix, whether it goes to Paramount, whether it goes to Apple or whoever. This studio is going to be sold off, and I mean, it's the reality of the situation. That consolidation is a real thing right now. But this is Arya Radnia. I'll be linking his channel, excuse me, down below. So yeah, I'll go ahead and start playing the video, and then Slimer, Mr. Duck, just go ahead and say, hey, OG, and I'll pause it if there's anything that you want to say during the video. Let's rock and roll.
Waste your time, so let's get straight into it. Google's acquisition of YouTube, Google's acquisition of DoubleClick, Facebook's acquisition of Instagram, Disney's acquisition of Pixar. There's not that many acquisitions in the world that can even compete for the title of the greatest acquisition of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently living through potentially the greatest acquisition of all time. And after I run you through the numbers, after I run you through,
if you can pause here,
potential with this acquisition.
I'm sorry, Bob Iger, but I think Netflix buying Warner Brothers outbids any acquisition that you have done.
It definitely is the most industry changing, the most impactful. 100%. It does make the Pixar buy and things like that look like small potatoes. 1,000%. Yeah, 100%.
I think you'll join me on the boat of if this acquisition goes through for Netflix, this will single-handedly be the greatest acquisition of all time. And I don't say that to be provocative or out of exaggeration. The potential here is unbelievable, hingent, of course, on the fact that the acquisition goes through to begin with. Now, I've seen some very awful takes on both YouTube and Twitter over the past week, so I kind of want to get on here, clear the air on some of the different details of the deal, and more importantly, kind of talk to you about the future potential of this acquisition, hingent, of course, on the fact that it actually goes through to begin with. So for starters, I kind of want to cover the news that broke out today, which is Paramount, Sky, Dance, whatever they're called now. They're making a even higher bid to possibly acquire Warner Brothers at, I believe it's like $110 billion valuation. Netflix put, I think, an $84-ish billion number. And so we'll kind of cover the details on that and spoilers, why it ultimately doesn't matter because Skydance can't afford it to begin with. And then additionally, some other people were saying, oh, why are they buying this business that is, cash flowing only $3 billion, whatever, what a terrible acquisition. They're paying such a high price to essentially buy nothing. It's like a legacy, whatever, this and that. Again, we'll go through the details of that. That is completely irrelevant because they're not buying it for current year free cash flows. They're buying it for the potential of the business if it were in the hands of Netflix. And my God, the potential there is unbelievable. And then thirdly, there's an argument to be made of, oh, this will never pass through regulators. This is just a clear case of a big company buying out its competition, whatever. And we'll cover the details on that front as well. First and foremost, quick shout out to Fiscal AI, which is the sponsor of today's video. And I'd like to point them out because they make charts like this available to everyday investors such as yourself. It took me maybe 30 seconds to pull this up and 30 seconds for me to drive this insight of, oh, Skydance can't even afford this. So they put up a bid of, I don't know the exact number, but something in the ballpark of 100 billion, give or take. And if we just simply go onto Fiscal AI and we pull the total debt and the total cash that the business has, right away you could see that they have a decent amount of debt to begin with, which can potentially make it more difficult for them to take out more debt. More importantly, they don't have that much cash. They have only $3 billion of cash. And this is a business that is currently cash flowing about $300 million. So I have no idea where they're going to get all this money from. I would assume it's through a mixture of raising equity and raising debt. But then again, they're kind of just shooting themselves.
So yeah, if you can pause
because of the interest payments on that debt.
Yeah, and you made this point earlier on at the top of the show, Seymour. Go ahead and expand upon that.
Yeah, I was just saying that like the company doesn't make enough money. How are they going to produce? And if you can just go back a little bit to that chart. You can see their cash flows have been going down and down every time. And look, they're not doing well. They're not doing well now. And you expect them to do well in the future with the company that's happening now. And I have uncertainty. And that's why I think a lot of shareholders have uncertainty as well. If that Warner Brothers goes with Paramount, how are they going to sustain this future with them? I don't see a path of profitability unless they do massive cuts and use AI in place. Or maybe they're thinking of theme parks. But even then, how are they going to fund the theme parks? You funded all your money, everything you got. The banks won't allow you to have more money. So now you need to have you need to have foreign entities to come in and help you with that. I don't see a path where Paramount will have a stable future currently if they were to merge.
And because I know somebody's going to make a counter argument, they're just going to spin off a lot of the assets that they don't want, like linear, Turner Classic Movies, CNN. I mean, look, there are assets that Paramount could spin off to recuperate some of the newly acquired debt, but it's a fraction of the amount of debt that they're going to incur. And if they have to bypass the outside investors, the foreign investors, in order to get approved by the regulators, I mean, that's that's more debt that the Ellisons are going to take on themselves, that they're not going to see an investment on for many years. But yeah, $300 million a year, EBITDA is, it's terrible. I mean, but that's the problem that Comcast has too. When you look at their theatrical actual profits, it's small potatoes compared to how much Netflix is profiting per year.
Yeah, no, well said. Now, Seymour, prior to buying Paramount, right? What were the Ellisons doing? I'm not familiar with their backstory. Like, they weren't always involved in Hollywood, right? If I'm not mistaken.
They were involved in Skydance.
Okay. Before that, though, were they a Hollywood entity at all, or?
No, the family is funded by Oracle essentially. They're the big rich family that owns Oracle. Larry Ellison is the big guy. That at one point, you know, he was the richest man in the world. Now that's Elon Musk, but yeah, their family is, let's just say, loaded, but apparently not loaded enough to get enough money out of this. The banks won't allow them to loan, so they have to take it out of their own pockets. Yeah, and even then, they have to go to the foreign entities to get it, which is kind of impressive that Netflix was able to do all that money and make a loan, and the banks allowed it because the banks knew that Netflix didn't have a lot of debt compared to Paramount, knew that they have a stable future with it, and they knew that the cash flows coming into Netflix can pay off the debt in the future. And the banks did not consider that when looking at Paramount.
You know, it's interesting. Oracle is a tech company. Am I not mistaken?
Yes.
The irony, and they literally just bought Skydance only like a couple years ago. It's not like they've owned it for a real long time. I mean, it's funny to me that like Skydance right now is owned by a tech billionaire or whatever, but people are freaking out over Netflix. Like, oh, it's a tech company, but it's like, okay, but that's where the Ellisons came from too. So, I mean, right? I mean, I tripping. I feel like it's not like these guys were like deeply rooted in Hollywood. Like they're tech people.
Yeah, it's like, are people speaking facts or are they just peddling propaganda that they hear?
Yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
$100 million. So I have no idea where they're going to get all this money from. I would assume it's through a mixture of raising equity and raising debt. But then again, they're kind of just shooting themselves in the foot because of the interest payments on that debt. And once you acquire them, odds are you're probably going to have to lay off a bunch of people to be able to realize some cost synergies and be able to even afford this deal. And so overall, it's just the structure gets a bit hazy. And frankly, I think they would be stretching themselves.
Yeah, if you can pause
there's
here.
a very real argument to be made of this will be bad for jobs.
So I did not react. I didn't watch this video. I wanted to react to it blindly. I watched like 2 seconds. I'm like, okay, let's watch this video. It's more up to date than the previous one. And yeah, he's saying the exact same things I'm saying, that there's going to be, I don't know how they're going to, you know, pay down the debt without massive cost cutting with layoffs. And that's the unfortunate thing with Paramount, is that I see that overlap, and then I see that the debt they're going to be in, where that's the only solution they have. And it's the unfortunate thing, you know, and we talk about this, OG, about like due diligence within the companies, and how in the Asian companies, you know, even in Japan, they don't have that type of thinking where like we need to lay off customers to lay off our workers in order to produce more cash flows. No, they just produce a better product, and they keep the employees they have now to ensure that you know, the future is still there and strong. Where the Western companies, unfortunately, especially in tech, and you know, they're owned by a tech billionaire, you know, they do a lot of massive layoffs. You know, Meta just did another massive layoff. They're doing all these massive layoffs, all these cuts, and then try to produce, you know, a future of AI, and then use AI as a replacement for those jobs. And unfortunately, that's what I see with the coming from Paramount.
No, that's a fair concern. There's a lot of redundancies. We have a studio buying another studio. There's gonna be a lot of overlap with that. There's gonna be a lot of layoffs, 100%.
If this acquisition goes through at the projected price. Again, shout out to Fiscal AI because they make charts like this available. And so very quickly, you're able to pull up these different fundamentals to be able to see stuff like this. There's a 2-week free trial, no card required, with the link in the description down below if you're interested in trying it out for yourself. Now, more in terms of what Netflix is actually going to do with this and having the HBO brand under its umbrella. This is an email that I got from Netflix, and they essentially said, and they said this in public releases as well, that they're going to be keeping the two brands separate. And I think that's a very genius move. There were some ideas floating around of, okay, if they're going to buy HBO, are they just going to completely get rid of the HBO Max brand and the streaming service and everything and just put all the content under Netflix? You know, there's questions about cannibalization because HBO Max has 100 million subscribers at the moment. So getting rid of that and putting it under the Netflix umbrella, is that really ultimately worth it? Will that drive enough revenues, et cetera, et cetera? And they don't plan on doing that. And frankly, I think it would be stupid to do something like that. So what they have told us is that they're going to keep the two brands separate. And that's a very smart move.
There's another reason why they wouldn't do that, and that's because it would crash the server. I mean, Netflix already has server issues as it is right now. Stranger Things had server issues on episode 1. Go watch that, or if you were there for the Mike Tyson Netflix show, I mean, server issues out the ass. And then you want to merge it with that HBO Max? Like, no way.
Hello?
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah, you're here.
But yeah, there's just no way that I just don't think the servers be able to handle that load. Keep
No,
them
100%.
separate.
No, you're right. And HBO is a powerful, well-known, respected brand, and you don't want to get rid of that. Lean into it. I mean, I was critical of WB for the branding. They've been WB, like Zaslav, has been kind of a mess when it comes to HBO Max. When they rebranded it to Max, that was really weird. They've made some weird decisions. I think Netflix understands that HBO. They've talked about it recently. That HBO is a really good, strong brand, and we want to lead into that. And we'll keep them separate. I think that's the way to go. And honestly, in terms of streaming services go, oh, we lost Seymour. Okay, well, he'll come back. In terms of streaming services go, no one does it better than Netflix. So I think the overall, them running HBO Max, it'll be a good thing.
And Netflix understands branding better than Warner Brothers as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
They've kept the same name for 25 years.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Method that they plan on monetizing these assets is to kind of try to cross-sell the Netflix user base that doesn't have an HBO subscription once the acquisition goes through. So as it stands today, Netflix has roughly, give or take, 300 million, maybe a little bit more subscribers. HBO has 100 million. Now, even if we assume every single HBO subscriber has a Netflix subscription, which is not the case, but anyways, for the sake of simple analysis, that's what we'll kind of go for. That leaves about 200 million, maybe a little bit more in terms of subscribers of Netflix who currently do not have a HBO subscription. What this deal allows for Netflix is that they can take the footprint and the distribution that they already have with those 200 million subscribers and be able to cross-sell them onto HBO. Now, obviously, they're not going to just, give out this HBO subscription for the same sticker price that it currently is at. Odds are not that many people would want to just buy the HBO content at $20 a month. It ultimately makes no difference to the consumer that the streaming service is now owned by Netflix. It still costs the same. So what I think will happen, and we have the real world example of this because Disney has been doing it for some time, is I think once HBO goes under the Netflix umbrella, they'll start to do the exact same thing that they've been doing.
I do want to state
that
though,
Disney has been doing with Hulu and ESPN.
Now that I syncly came back, I did get that email from Netflix as well. I got an email stating that they're going to keep the company separate. They're going to keep the company as a different entity, but they're going to own, Netflix is going to own it. And I think there's going to be this like cross-platform where they can use each other and balance each other. Mm-hmm. But the thing I do want to state that they see that now, but 10 years from now, things could change. And he brings up Disney Plus and Hulu. And you know what happened with Disney Plus and Hulu, right? What's happening now is that they were a bundled offer. They thought it was going to be great with a bundled offer. But then eventually now Hulu is getting dismantled and is going to become Disney Plus on its own.
That's a good point, Seymour. That's actually a great point.
So, Netflix might say now that, oh, okay, let's keep them separate and have an additional charge and bundle them. Yeah, that might look good now, but then eventually they might just you know what? They want better engagement. Let's merge the two platforms into one, raise the price, and we're good with that. That might happen in the next 5 to 10 years if this ever does get merged.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point.
And all these other brands that they've acquired. I believe they're in the process of acquiring Fubo. I would assume that also falls under the Disney umbrella. And they kind of give you like a bundle of various different streaming services. So sure, you want to maybe own, or you want to just buy the Disney and Hulu package, that starts at $13 a month. Obviously, if it's ad-free and whatnot, it's a little bit more expensive. If you want to get Disney, Hulu, and ESPN, it's a little bit more expensive. It seems that if you were to just buy the two services as a standalone service, Disney and Hulu, that is, it would cost roughly $40 per month. But if you wanted to get the bundle of the two on ad-free, it'll cost $20 a month. Now, I don't think Netflix would, slash the price on HBO to that extent. Hulu is, in fact, an inferior streaming service than HBO. But you would imagine in a world where they do acquire it, if you're already a Netflix subscriber, maybe you get a 30% discount, a 40% discount, whatever the case may be, on your HBO if you were to go through with it. So that would mean, you're paying $20 a month for Netflix. For an extra $10 a month, you're able to get an HBO subscription as well and watch Game of Thrones, watch Harry Potter, watch the new Batman movie, Superman. They own a couple other assets that I'm blanking on.
Yeah,
All these
I do
different
wanna
great
pause
shows
here
that
too.
HBO houses.
Sure.
You're able to watch.
It's ironic though, because right now, Max, you can actually bundle in with Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So it's not so the
Mhm.
idea of, oh, we can have two different streaming services is not like a unique idea. The Disney does this right now, and I know a lot of people. Unfortunately, in the States, we don't. I mean, unfortunately, in Canada, we don't have it like in the US. In the States, we don't have Max. We have a Canadian-owned entity called Bell that owns. It's called Crave, and then they just license everything from Warner Brothers. So it's exactly like Warner Brothers, but Canadian government rules and whatnot. They didn't allow Warner Brothers to come. It's very weird, but because you need to create Canadian content. But yeah, Bell owns it, and it's a Canadian-owned entity. But yeah, we don't have Max. We don't have the bundle. But yeah, there is that bundle. So like, it's not a unique thing to see.
Yeah.
Well,
No, absolutely.
well, not only that, but not everybody, not everybody wants. Well, first and foremost, not everybody wants a bundle. First and foremost, you have HBO Max subscribers who just want HBO Max, or they just want HBO Max and another app, and they have no interest in Netflix. And so, by forcing those consumers, those purchase at the outset to like force them into your service, I mean, you got to tease them out a little bit. You got to get them warmed up a little. You know, you got to kind of play. You know, you got to fondle them a little before before you tell them, hey, you're gonna get this now. so
Right.
but it's true. I mean, like, look, I have Netflix maybe like 1 month out of the year. I got it for Stranger Things this year. I'm not a big Netflix guy. I love HBO Max. Love it. I think that's the best. That for me, that's the best streaming. And we have Amazon because it's part of our Prime bundle. But if you were like, hey man, like here's your options right off the bat, I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna grab a TV and I'm gonna put an antenna on. Like, screw you guys. And there's a lot of people like that. They're very picky and choosy about their streaming services.
You know, I'm the same way with Netflix, but instead of Max, it's Disney Plus. And because Disney Plus in Canada, we actually get Hulu already included at no additional cost. So I use that more than like they have every show I like on that platform. Netflix, I only have like, oh, Stranger Things is on. Okay, I'll have it. But the only reason I'm still subscribed is because I'm on a family plan where my parents pay an additional user for me to be on it. That's out of the household, so I'm not really paying for it. So that's why I'm only keeping it. But Disney Plus, I use it much more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all of those different shows on HBO Max at a discount to what the subscription originally costed. And so the importance of this deal lies in that point right there. The fact that there's an instant monetization once this acquisition goes through. Some people are talking about, okay, Warner Brothers, why are they even paying, $80 billion for a business that does $4 billion of free cash flow? This is a terrible deal. They're buying it at such an expensive multiple, and they don't plan on putting any of the content inside of Netflix. That doesn't make sense. Again, we kind of covered how the real point here is that they are going to be able to cross-sell it. And so right away, without putting any more investment into the IP of Warner Brothers, without funding any new shows or anything like that, right away, Netflix will likely be able to unlock instant monetization in the form of that cross-selling. Now, it remains to be seen, and your guess
this is a really important point. Do you think Paramount is going to do the same thing? I'm gonna go ahead and say no. Paramount has one of the weaker streaming services. Yeah. They are going to merge Paramount and HBO Max immediately.
That is a fantastic point, Slimer, and you are not wrong. I definitely think that's going to happen. Yep.
Yeah.
Because
they're not going to monetize it the way that Netflix would be able to.
Fantastic point. I completely agree with you on that. And that would, that's interesting too. And what would that do to the HBO brand? Because the HBO brand is really strong. But now you're throwing Paramount in there. Go ahead, Seymour.
No, it is. It's almost like a premium brand, because if you go even for the cable customers or the IPTV customers these days, they have an HBO package strictly for HBO, and people like HBO. They're willing to pay even on legacy, cable networks. That they want that HBO. They pay that premium for HBO. When you merge it with Paramount, that high quality thing doesn't seem as much high quality anymore. And I feel like here, if Netflix does bundle out that service as HBO, they could, target it as a higher quality. Look at our premium TV shows. Look at our premium movies that come on a platform. Because
Yeah.
when I hear HBO, and which is why I thought it was a bad move when they did HBO Max to Max, because HBO was that premium brand. Max, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, exactly. Yeah, when
Mhm.
they called it Max, that was such a fumble. That was crazy.
Actually going to subscribe to that, but you would imagine a pretty large cohort of that 200, roughly 250 million people that are Netflix subscribers but not HBO subscribers.
Oh, and
a
I
lot
just
of them
remembered
would
something.
probably
Sure.
subscribe to HBO.
Because I mentioned how HBO Max is not in Canada. It's not in a lot of countries actually worldwide, but because of Netflix and how worldwide and diverse they are in all these other countries, we could gain access to that service as well now.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Yes, because I'm not familiar with a lot of that stuff. You're in Canada, so that's fascinating. Okay,
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool. Go ahead.
it's very odd because if I go on Netflix, I see a lot of Warner Brothers content as well on that platform because they don't have a platform themselves. They license to Crave, they license to Netflix, even on Disney Plus. Sometimes I see Warner Brothers content in Canada
Right.
because there's no platform for it. So Warner Brothers wants that extra money. Like, hey, Disney, hey, Netflix, hey, Crave in Canada at least. Well, give us a little cash and we'll give you all these type of movies, TV shows where we don't usually have.
Yeah.
Even, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
HBO Max at a massive discount to watch Game of Thrones, to watch Superman battle it out with Batman, whatever the case may be. That's very valuable IP that they'll be buying as a result of this. And that cross-selling ability is ultimately what they're buying it for. They're not buying it for current year free cash flow. They're buying it for what free cash flows will look like as soon as the acquisition will go through.
Right.
And so again, this is just kind of speculating up in the air, but if we just do some very basic math to kind of ground the numbers here, if we assume, and again, big if, because ultimately we have no idea until it actually happens, of that roughly 200, maybe 50 million-ish, 200 to 250, whatever the case is, of that cohort of Netflix users, if we only get 50 million of them, and 50 million sounds like a lot, but again, remember, Netflix has a lot of subscribers, and by the time this deal goes through, it's likely that they're going to have more subscribers on the platform. So we're really only looking at 20% of the sort of total addressable market of this cohort of Netflix users, right? Only 20%, not that many. If in the first year of this acquisition going through, 20% of them subscribe, that is a $6 billion free cash flow boost, just instant monetization that comes at almost zero incremental costs to Netflix. Because again, we're assuming on year one, they don't put any sort of increased investment into the IP. This is just all the IP and all the movies that they've already built that there's going to be new subscribers and new demand for using the HBO Netflix cross-selling ability. And then at the same time, I also put this tweet out. Netflix themselves expects roughly $2.5 billion to maybe $3 billion of cost synergies once this acquisition goes through. And this intuitively makes sense because obviously once the acquisition goes through, very basic, age-old example is like you don't need two HR departments. You don't need multiple different compliance departments, whatever the case is, right? So there's a lot of cost synergies that they get to
And a lot of the cost synergy in here is like the redundant of having a studio produce the movie you need when you have that studio now to do it. You don't need to fill in the gaps of the content that you don't have anymore because Warner Brothers has that huge back catalog, and Netflix can gain from that Warner Brothers discovery. Warner Brothers when they merge. And the one thing I like about this, and I think this is why shareholders like it, and I think this is primarily why Warner Brothers went with Netflix, is because there is that 15%. It's not all cash deal. It's that 15%. And they know by the time when they merge, that 15% of Netflix stock they get in return is going to increase in value over time.
Right.
And he's saying that like just simply having the HBO service on its own is already producing significant cash flow, and we didn't even expand on IP or even theme park licensing and all that's coming in, or even a little bit of gaming. None of that is even being considered yet. We're just thinking about here if we added an additional HBO service bundled in with Netflix.
Netflix has a huge opportunity that when those license renewals come up or when those licenses come up for renewal, all the licenses they rely on so many. They're going to say no because they have Warner Brothers now. And so, I mean, that for me, that's where a lot of that cost synergy is going to come from is really one, it's saving licenses, but two, the appeal of having Warner Brothers on your streamer,
Yeah.
I mean, they used to pay Warner Brothers for that. Now they don't own it. So
Yeah, no, 100%.
Experience as a result of that. And in addition to that, Netflix being a massive advertising juggernaut, all of a sudden they can start to bargain for better ad rates, whether that would be external or internal. So whether it be on their own platform that they're making advertising revenues, or if they're advertising on, say, a YouTube, a Google, whatever the case is, they can bargain for better CPMs because the total bargaining power of the two services combined is obviously larger because you're spending more money. This is kind of what you see. This is the moat of Louis Vuitton, because they own 75 brands under them. When, for example, Sephora, which is a brand under the LVMH conglomerate, when Sephora wants to advertise on YouTube, did you want the Sephora rate or did you want the LVMH wide rate that you're dealing with this massive company with 75 brands under it, right? There's scale and bargaining power that comes with spending a lot more money, right? This is pretty basic stuff. Point is, there's 2.5 to maybe roughly $3 billion of cost synergies like that, whether it be getting rid of multiple HR departments, whether it be increased bargaining power with some of your marketing expenses and other expenses throughout the business. So what you have total here is $4 billion of free cash flow, just for starters. That's what the business is currently doing. $6 billion, give or take, can be a lot more, right? We only assumed 50 million people extra subscribe at $10. Maybe it's not $10. Maybe the discounted HBO price coming from Netflix is $15, whatever the case is, right? I'm sure they'll figure out the logistics of that later on. That's an extra, roughly $6 billion of free cash flow in year one. And then an extra $3 billion in cost synergies on a going forward basis. If this deal goes through, you are essentially paying $84 billion to generate an extra $13 billion of free cash flow, or roughly in that ballpark, within the first year of operations. What a genius business move. And of course, that free cash flow will continue to grow. It's not a stagnant, just reoccurring amount. Once they make that acquisition, this is a continuous stream of free cash flow. That's more free cash flow than Netflix is doing currently. I think they're in the roughly $8 billion park. And with Fiscal AI, of course, we're able to see stuff like this. Yeah, as you can see, Netflix is doing roughly 90.
So considering it's $13 billion, right? How many years would it take for them to see profit on their return on investment?
Go ahead, Seymour.
6 years, 6 years, 7 years. There's no way that Paramount is going to be able to tell their shareholders that they can have a return on their investment of 5 or 6 years. There's just no way.
No, I think actually it'd be much less.
4 to 5 years.
Yeah, because the multiple for Paramount to produce the debt, and this is debt if they just don't spend any other money. If they just spend their it was a multiple of 6. I had that chart 6.7 times as much as the debt they would have to do, and in that multiple of 6.7 times, is the amount of years it will take to clear off the debt. So it'll take a bit of time for it, and I think Netflix actually will take a little bit less time.
Yeah.
And the thing is with Netflix is that it's a stable company, and with the cash flows coming in, this is again why this is the positive of this when you're looking at an investment, the business cap on. If you go to Paramount, I don't think Paramount can do all these things that Netflix does because they need to produce cash flows, and I don't think they're able to produce it that way because they have so much amount of debt that needs to be cleared right away. Netflix can take its time and ensure that these cash flows come in. I don't think that can happen with Paramount. It's the unfortunate. Like you said, are they going to keep HBO Max when the Paramount streaming service is not as big? Right. You know what I mean? You're going to merge the two together, so then you don't have that benefit with Netflix bundling it together. Can't speak today.
I mean, just judging off of how Ellison, just his overall demeanor, I think the first thing he would do is probably try to merge Paramount Plus into HBO Max, losing all opportunities and cost synergies and everything. I think he'd be more focused on total subs and just generating, getting higher sub growth through the process of a merger of the two sub services.
Yeah, no, that's their move for sure. 100%. Yeah. Netflix has way more opportunity to keep that HBO brand separate. And I think that's really important.
$1 billion of free cash flow. If this acquisition goes through for, again, only $84 billion, they are probably in year one going to add an extra $13 billion to that figure. This is going to be a $20 billion plus free cash flow business. Just unbelievable. And I should mention, this is just a base case. This is a base case of they buy the business, they realize the cost synergies. Obviously, the company itself is free cash flowing a little bit. There's some question marks around cannibalization of revenues. Realistically, how much of that $4 billion is going to get cannibalized? It shouldn't be too big of an impact. We should walk our way towards north of $10 billion of free cash flow as a result of this acquisition. Then the cross-selling comes in, right? The more bullish stance you can take on this acquisition, this is more, again, this is in like the super bullish sort of speculative side of things in terms of what the future may hold. I can imagine a world where, and Netflix has a history of doing this, right? With like the password crackdown and stuff like that. Like they first tell you like, yeah, there's literally tweets of this, of like share your passwords, like they're encouraging it. But they have a history of like kind of getting users used to these features and then putting it behind or starting to monetize it to some capacity, right? They did this with ads as well, where there was no ads for a very, very long time. It was a subscription only business. Now there's ads in it, and how much, backlash they got for that. I can imagine a world where what they do is for a couple years, maybe even 5 years, maybe for even a decade, whatever the case is, they have the same bundling structure, which that we don't know that yet, but I'm assuming that's what they're going to do. It would make sense because Disney also did it and all that. So again, we're in the land of speculation here, right? So they bundle it up. They give you massive discounts upfront for you to try out Warner Brothers. Obviously, in the short term, that's very good for Netflix because with little to no incremental investment costs, you're rendering a whole lot of incremental revenues, and that's all great. Then after a couple years, what they start to do is, and because this is with the backing of Netflix, they have a whole bunch of money that they can start pouring into the new DC universe and the new Game of Thrones spin-off shows, which, by the way, there's so much unbelievable demand
you can pause here
for all these different spin-off shows of just Game of Thrones alone.
So I did the math in regards to safe levels of debt. So Paramount, it will take around 6.5 years, right, in order to get to a safe level of debt being paid off. And that's assuming nothing else is being spent and no additional debt coming in and using only the cash flows they produce. Netflix, it would only take 2.5 years.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Alone. Never mind any of the other IP, but there's demand for these sort of things, right? And so these shows start to get created, and the Game of Thrones people that were watching it in the decade past, all of a sudden they're paying for an additional HBO subscription. And then after a couple years, after a couple shows comes out, after a couple movies comes out, and people start to get hooked to these franchises, what do? They say, oh, sorry guys, no more discount for you. That's it. If you want to keep watching your Game of Thrones spin-off shows, if you want to keep watching the DC cinematic universe, because we're only halfway through the resolution of it, Marvel style, you're gonna have to pay full price for HBO. And then boom, overnight, you have just a massive boost to free cash flows. Again, I have no idea strategically if this is even the route that they're going to do it, but the history shows with password crackdowns, with ads, Netflix has a history of kind of getting you hooked on these services, trying to get as many users onto the platform as possible, and then figuring out a sort of monetization method later down the road once they've gotten you hooked on the content. And I would assume a couple years down the line, whether it be 2, 3, 5, whatever, the executives at Netflix are kind of thinking of the acquisition in that terms as well. Of once we start to, develop this IP and start launching a whole bunch of movies and whatnot, that's sort of the general direction that they would like to go in the future. Net everything. If I were to give you a summary of the video,
I do want to
in the
say
short
one
term,
thing.
Skydance, I don't think has a value.
If this plan doesn't work, we know in the next 5 to 10 years they're just going to merge it with Netflix.
Yes, absolutely. Is that where your head is at right now, Seymour, with that?
Yeah. I think that if a lot, I think a lot of this really just depends on the consumer, where the consumer is at with spending, where they are with how many streaming services they want to maintain at one time. Disney obviously saw that Disney consolidated in what, 3 years? No, 4 years. Yeah, I think it was 4 years. So yeah, I think 4 to 5 years is going to be the year, or like the time frame, whether they're going to consolidate them into one or not. I mean, also, I don't know. I mean, like, do these things have to run on one server, Seymour? Like, if they consolidate it all, is that just going to be on Netflix's server, or are they going to be running on both servers, but it's just going to appear like it's just on one streaming service to the user?
That would be logistics after the merger happens, so I don't actually know, because that could be down to the cost cutting as well. But then if they're
Because that's a really important factor too. I mean, Disney didn't have to worry about that issue as much because Hulu had like sub 100. Disney had, I don't know however much when they merged it, but I mean, you're talking about merging 300 million subs with 100 million subs. Like just logistically, that's a completely different ball game. So even if they planned on merging it, they have to work out all the logistics aspects out first and foremost. Even before they do that, they could take. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a cyber guy, but 12 to 18 months to resolve that, and then you have, of course, the user feedback loop, which could take another 6 months once it goes online, because you're gonna have to run a beta. So I mean, you're looking at 2 months or 2 years to 5 years before a merger, minimum, maximum.
Yeah,
if they merge the streamers, yeah,
no, that's fair. You got to get the infrastructure in.
Valid bid on possibly acquiring and stealing this away from Netflix. And even if they do, it's not too problematic for Netflix, because I don't think the combination of those two assets would realistically be that strong of a competitor. The point here is that Netflix has the roughly 30 million subscribers, and they're able to monetize it much better than a Skydance, a Paramount, whatever. So that's one side of it, right? Like, I don't think their bid is that valid. And even if it goes through, they would be hemorrhaging a lot of cash and it would cost them a lot of money. You'd put them financially in a weaker position, if anything, right? That's one side of it. Side number 2, instant monetization through cross-selling of the assets. That is massive. Right away, the acquisition will start to pay itself back within a handful of years, right? So if we take the $13 billion of free cash flow, you divide that by 84, you're looking at what, like a 6-7 year payback period, just off of that year's free cash flow, not even the growing free cash flows that comes from it, whatever. Point number 3 is there's the flexibility and the potential that longer term, once there's a lot of HBO subscribers, they can start to do some very fun things in terms of getting rid of those discounts or having HBO be like a standalone service, just as strong as Netflix. Like they can build this studio up using their distribution. So overall, when I told you at the start of the video, this might go down as the single greatest acquisition of all time, I don't think I was exaggerating. For all intents and purposes, am I interested in opening a position in Netflix at this time? I've always been interested in opening a position in Netflix, to be quite honest with you. But the barrier for me has been, for my time recently, at least the past, I would say 2 years, Netflix has always traded at like a pretty premium valuation, in my opinion. Even today at roughly 40 times earnings, you can use free cash flow or earnings or EV to EBIT. It's all roughly, the same. It has become a little bit cheaper. The company did peak at, like 60 times earnings in June, and that was very, very expensive in my opinion. I was actually putting out tweets calling it expensive at the time. So anyways, but at the 40 times that it's trading at today, I think it's a fair price to pay. You have a business that is growing revenues, I think, close to 20, actually less quarterly. Yeah. So if we look at it on a quarterly basis, they're growing at 17-ish%. Trailing 12 month, roughly 15-16% or so. I would assume earnings per share, organically grows at about 20%, maybe a little bit faster. So you're paying roughly 2 times earnings to growth. You're paying a 2 times PEG ratio. That's not exactly the cheapest, in my opinion. But again, like you're buying a super wide moat business, number 1 in streaming, all that great stuff, right? So this is why I call it like roughly a fair price, because it's a very wide moat business, right? I would personally want to catch this at a smaller, I shouldn't say smaller, at a cheaper valuation. I also suspect that we are not done with the negative headlines. I think there's going to be a lot more irrational sort of sell-offs to come for Netflix. I've been through this with Uber.
Yeah,
and I
if
don't
you
need
can
to compare
pause
them. They're
here.
not one-to-one.
So I find this very funny because today on X, all I saw was Netflix buying Warner Brothers, stock goes down. Netflix might not get Warner Brothers, stock goes down.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. No, there's a lot of, like you mentioned it, Slimer, early on in the show. This like crazy, just the fervor out there for this thing is wild. You know what I'm saying? And there's all kinds of what would you call it? Like propaganda, I guess would be the word for it.
Propaganda, bad takes.
Yeah.
Well, bullshit.
Sort of comparisons, and that is fighting a disruption risk. This is an acquisition headline risk. But I've been through this in terms of sentiment. And frankly, I'm kind of hoping for sentiment to get a little bit worse for me to start thinking about buying some shares into the business. But I'm very interested in this. This is, again, it has so much unbelievable potential. And we're just sitting here as a market analyst, kind of speculating on what they do. I'm sure the reality of what they end up doing it.
Can you pause real quick?
Management team at Netflix, they're going to be able to.
I mean, just like he says right now, he's hoping sentiment gets a little bit worse, so that way he can get a better price on a share. So how do you know that there's not a bazillion videos on YouTube creating negative sentiment so that they can go buy shares at a lower cost?
You never know. Yeah,
That's,
sure.
I mean, this is market manipulation, and it's happening widespread. A lot of people don't even know it.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, Slimer. That's a great point.
This asset to its fullest and do things that we can't even possibly imagine in this moment. So overall, as you can tell, I'm very, very bullish if this acquisition goes through. Of course, a portion of that is hingent on the regulatory scrutiny. Then again, I don't think they have that much of an argument, because if we, for example, take the Adobe failed acquisition of Figma, that's a 60% market share company buying like a 5% market share company. Yeah, you have a better claim in terms of antitrust. Netflix as a percentage of streaming is not even the biggest. YouTube is the biggest, right? So, and they have a sea of competitors on that front, not to mention they compete technically with social media, they compete with cable TV. So they have a lot of competitors. Even if we look at just streaming services, Netflix is the number 1 player buying the number 4 player. They have like 10% market share, buying an extra 2% of market share. Something in that ballpark. I'm just going off memory here. And so to go all the way back on it, am I interested in opening a position? Absolutely. I've always been interested. This is kind of, it falls in that bucket of like Shopify, Spotify, like those sort of businesses that
If you
I
could
admire
pause
from a
here.
distance. I'm, psychologically bullish on.
I'm also interested as well, just for transparency's sake, but it's just because the issue I had with Netflix, and I've stated this many times during this video, is that there will be a point where growth will stall, and when growth stalls, they need to expand their margin. And I think the only chance they are able to do that is if they buy Warner Brothers.
Well, yeah, I think this acquisition, if it goes through, is going to supercharge growth. I mean, because they already have a wide mode as it is, but this is going to make it even wider. And in terms of how wide they want this mode to get, they're probably looking at Disney and saying, hey, like, we want to be like them. I mean, that's just how I imagine them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're thinking flywheel. They're thinking synergy across all their brands. Obviously, entertainment isn't just limited to streaming. We know that. But it's like how wide can you make your brand, or how broad can you make your brand? Because the more touch points you have within the entertainment industries, I mean, obviously the more profitable you're going to be, but the more brand recognition you're going to have, and the more you're going to impact consumers and how they spend their money, or not impact consumers, but affect consumers and incentivize consumers to spend money on your brand as opposed to somebody else's.
Yeah, well said.
On, or excuse me, psychologically long on. This is one of those companies I think is a very, very powerful business. But as it stands currently, I think I have better opportunities in front of me, especially at the current valuation and everything we covered so far. I think Adobe and Uber still serve as better propositions, particularly Uber. I kind of always bucket Uber and Spotify and Netflix and those sort of new big tech companies. I kind of bucket them all together. And in my opinion, as it stands currently, Uber is probably, Airbnb as well, by the way, included in that bucket. I kind of think Uber is the best value among all these names in terms of valuation to growth. Company's trading at a 4 PE of 25, and we could take a look at this. The company today is trading at a 4 PE of 25, and I estimate that they're probably going to be growing their earnings per share easily north of 20%. What's more likely over the next 3 to 5 years is they grow their earnings per share at somewhere between 25 to 30% annualized every single year for the next 3 to 5 years, right? So you compare that to Netflix today that trades at, what's their 4 PE? 4 PE of 33. So, not as expensive as the 40 times that was just advertised, but still meaningfully more expensive than Uber. And you're getting roughly the same growth, maybe a little bit slower in terms of growth rates. So I view Uber to be the better value proposition. Now, I did actually tweet out recently, like, which one do you think is the wider moat business? I would probably, as an Uber shareholder, I would probably say Netflix is the wider moat business, but I view them very similar in that regard. But I think especially internationally, Uber has a lot of more credible competitors, whether it be, Grab in Southeast Asia, DoorDash in the US, even Lyft to some extent. Like, it's still like a pretty meaningful competitor to them. They have a lot more competitors, and they're not like the de facto number one in every single market, whereas Netflix, for the most part, is the de facto number one in every single market that they operate in. So just based off that nuance, I would probably give the moat side of things to Netflix. But nonetheless, I view the moats pretty equal overall. It's not too big of a deal for me. And I think Uber is by far the better value play even to this day. Even though I'm up 40% on my shares, I still think that stock outperforms Netflix at these prices. And so for me to open a position, I would need some version of Netflix continuing to go down in terms of valuation a little bit more. Ideally, we get a little bit more clarity on the deal and sort of the return on investment there, so on and so forth. But yeah, this is immediately jumped to top of the watch list, just purely off how incredible and the potential with this acquisition. Just as a heads up, if you made it all the way through, first of all, thank you for watching. But also, until Christmas Day, I am planning on feeding the homeless with all the proceeds that comes from the Patreon. So as a part of that, you do get Discord access, exclusive videos, all that great stuff. But all the proceeds that comes through that we'll be using to help feed the homeless or call a local homeless shelter and try to see what their needs are. The link for that is also in the description. And again, you're not doing it as like an empty charity donation. You do get something in return. You get the exclusive videos and the Discord access to a community with like-minded investors. So if you'd like to help with that cause and contribute to it, by all means, link.
Awesome video. My first time watching his content, Ario Radnia. I will be linking his channel down below, so make sure you check him out. Very in-depth financial analysis. I really enjoyed it. Mr. Duck, closing thoughts. I mean, like, this is kind of crazy. I mean, I'm coming around to the Netflix thing. I really am. When you really put things in perspective, what are the other options? I mean, like, I've personally, I preferred Comcast because of that theme park, angle, but clearly Comcast ain't in the running really that much anymore. What's the alternative? Paramount? Because if Paramount, you come across, like Slimer, you brought up with a lot of the network stuff, you come across monopoly issues there. Seymour, you brought up great points with the overlapping same style of business where you're going to get a lot more layoffs. The stupid comments they made about 30 movies a year or something like that's kind of, I think that's completely tone deaf. And you're right, Seymour, very Bob Chapek-y, where it's quantity over quality, which didn't work out for Disney. It's not going to work out for Warner. So yeah, overall, let's see. Hopefully they can just kind of get through that regulatory process. If they can do that, we're good to go. But yeah, Seymour, I'll let you take over to close out the show.
I do have one last theory to go with you guys that I saw on X. So, because Arya talked about being bundled in with HBO and all that, the one thing that I saw on X that was rumored that HBO would be an additional add-on for Netflix, or like another streaming service, but a premium add-on for it. So Netflix will still get some of the back catalog on HBO Max. But what would happen is all the premium stuff, all the premium movies, all the premium shows, the high quality ones will go to HBO Max, and the lesser ones will go to Netflix. And you pay an additional charge for this high quality, you want to get those movies that you usually get. If they do, pull out of the movie theaters, right? They could put those movies into the HBO Max, and you pay that additional charge as an add-on. Like, look, you want that movie theater experience, but on a streaming service, you can get it. And I see a lot of people on X talking about that's how they're going to monetize it going forward.
That's really smart because they're self-aware enough to realize that Netflix doesn't have the better quality content compared to HBO Max. Right. Secondly, they're monetizing it because they're that self-aware. I mean, one precedes the other in order to even come up with that strategy. But that's a really good move. And what they would do, I mean, damn, that's a really good move. And so HBO Max would be their premium service. So like, let's say they would charge, I don't know what the current rate is. What's the current rate for ad-free tier on HBO Max? It's like $18 a month.
I wouldn't know. I'm a Canadian who doesn't have
HBO Max. So so it's, I don't know. Let's come up with the figure. Let's say $18 a month. Then the ad-free tier for Netflix would be lower because it's lower quality content. So they can continue to put their B tier stuff on Netflix, minus like Stranger Things. They'll have like their TV show hits. I assume on Netflix, but for the premium stuff, you're going to HBO. But they're going to have to thread that needle though, because you don't want everybody. I mean, you still want your sub base on Netflix to stay, to grow. So you're going to have to thread that needle in such a way that both are growing simultaneously.
Right. Yeah, no, it's actually kind of a brilliant move. Go ahead, Seymour.
And I think it would actually fill the void in where the movie theater industry is a melting ice cube. So instead of just providing it for free on Netflix as no additional charge, those movies are now in the HBO Max add-on or separate streaming service they would have.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, PVOD is going to be the way moving forward for sure. The question is what, is Netflix going to, are they going to hamstring the movie theaters with shorter release windows, or are they going to keep that, that 30, 45, 60-day release window? That's the big question.
Yeah, they talked. I think it was Serrano's talked about. They're looking at those windows, so we'll see.
If I remember correctly, I think a similar thing happened during COVID, where this was a Bob Chapek move, where Bob Chapek was thinking about, I think it was called Premier Access Disney had,
Yeah. Yep.
and they're thinking about
That's what OG has.
Yeah, exactly. I got that Premier Access, that Bob Iger Premier Access. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yes. So with the Disney, they had that. Bob Chapek had that during COVID because a lot of people couldn't go to the movie theaters because of COVID. So you paid an additional charge to watch movies on Disney Plus, and you could watch Black Widow. I think Jungle Cruise as well. I think there was a
Yep.
Mulan as well on there too. I think
Yeah.
there was a lot of movies you could watch where you don't have to go to the movie theater, and I find that that's like a balance actually. But then what happened was the movie theaters were scared because they thought Bob Chapek was going to do it permanently, and they agreed with him to shorten the window for the release.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix, they make a deal with the movie theaters to shorten the release as well, even shorter now.
Like
They
one
will.
day, like you got one day to see this movie in a movie theater, and then it's out.
Yeah, that would be wild. That would be wild. But I think they're really going to get creative with this stuff and play with it. So we'll see. But Mr. Duck, I appreciate you. We all do. Thank you so much for all you do, brother. This was a really cool deep dive into this deal. We'll see how it all shakes out. But Mr. Duck, if you want to close us out, and I'll let you take over.
Yeah, well, folks, it looks like it's our time to migrate out of here. Hopefully, we didn't ruffle too many feathers today, talking about this massive Warner Brothers deal today. I just want to say a huge thanks to the guests today for paddling out here and joining the conversation. Orange Grove 55, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duck. Appreciate you. Always fun time here at the Duck Pond. Yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking shop with these fine gentlemen and Jay Shear, Mr. Webba, and all Market, Candy Camper, everybody, Tones. We have a great team here at OG55 and nerding out, talking all this good stuff. Also, you can find me on Instagram, Orange Grove 55.
Thank you. And Slime Square, where can they find you?
Hey, listen, thanks so much for having me on. You can find me on all social medias at Slime Square or Slime Square 84. You can also find me on the Orange Grove Network, obviously. And I'm also on Theme Parking with Jared over at Capture the Magic. So check me out.
Yes. Theme Parking is a really, really fun show that we do. It's like bi-weekly, right, Slimer?
Yeah.
It's like bi-weekly. We nerd out all Disney parks, Universal stuff. And Jared's a good dude and really fun show. Make sure you guys check that out. I have the live shows in the playlist on the channel, so check those out. They're fun.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep your beaks wet, and remember, you're always a duck at the duck pond.
There it is.
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and become a member today.